Hello, my name is Valeria Wright, and this is Pressed into Purpose. Pressed into Purpose is a podcast dedicated to examining the journey toward discovering, embracing, and living out one's purpose. In each episode, my guests will provide their perspectives on how they identified their purpose and the ways in which accepting and pursuing it has influenced and transformed their lives. Today's guest is Dr. Vanesa Scott-Thompson. She is an interdisciplinary leader with K-12 higher education and nonprofit experience. Since 2019, she has served as a vice president in the nonprofit sector. Dr. VMST has a bachelor's degree from DePaul University in secondary education English. She has both a master's degree in education administration and supervision and a doctorate in higher education administration from Loyola University, Chicago. She is on the board of directors for Girls Inc. Chicago. She has been married to her husband for 22 years and has 2 children, one in college and a 6th grader. She is an accomplished writer, and her writing has been featured on a variety of Christian blogs and magazines. She is also a certified life coach, editor, and speaker. She has also been a leader in churches including praise and worship team, youth choir, youth church, and new members class. In 2022, she released her inaugural book entitled Foundation Basics for New Members, Teacher and Student Manual. You can find her on Facebook, IG, TikTok, YouTube, and LinkedIn. To learn more about her, please visit her website, drvmst.com. There's one more fun fact I have for you about today's guest. She's also my sister and my friend. Please help me welcome Dr. V. Hello, Dr. V.
Hi, sis.
How are you today?
I'm nervous, but I'm good.
Well, you know, the Pressed into Purpose podcast is a comfortable place. You know, we're just going to have some genuine conversation here. I want you to relax and just enjoy this time. And we're going to talk like we always talk.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, welcome again to the podcast. I'm so glad to have you here. You are one of my sisters, well, there are 4 of us,
right.
And you are the closest to me, actually, by 2 years.
Right.
And I'm just really excited that you're here today because, I mean, we could talk about a myriad of things. We won't get into all the things because everybody doesn't need to know everything. But today, I want to talk about some of your many accomplishments that I just read. And I want to start off with doctorate.
Okay.
And the reason I want to start there is because in our family, before you, the highest degree that had been achieved was a master's degree.
Correct.
And if I am not mistaken, that was by our mother.
Correct.
And so I would like for you to share with the people what made you decide to get the doctorate degree and what kind of challenges presented themselves along the way.
Okay. So I don't know if you remember this when we were children. Mom said she wanted somebody to go further than her.
Uh-huh.
And so I was like, okay, well, what's further than a master's? Because at the time I didn't know.
Okay.
So I learned that it was a doctorate. I don't know how I learned that because we didn't have internet back then, but I learned it.
Somebody told you, I'm sure.
So probably. And so when I got to high school, I met Dr. Dagny Blowland.
Okay.
And so Dr. Blowland, I was in regular English. She said, Vanesa, I think we need to put you in honors English. And I was like, what does that mean? And so she was like, it's more rigorous classes. And I was like, okay. And then junior year, she approached my teacher and told him to put me in AP English with her. And I was like, what? But Dr. Blowland, I asked her a lot of questions in high school about what it meant to have a doctorate. So I learned about all of the years it would take, the dissertation process, having a committee, yada, yada, yada. And I said, okay. So she was like the first person I saw with a doctorate. So then I decided, all right, I can't keep going. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of insane because I did, of course, we all did K-8. Mm-hmm. Then I did high school. And I went right into college. And right after college, I went right into my master's. And after my master's, I went right into my doctorate.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
And so I was 31 or 32 when I got my doctorate, which was pretty young. I didn't really have any challenges. I did have a professor try to put up a barrier.
Okay.
So he told me, you're kind of young to be applying for the doctoral program because I was 24. And I said, huh? And he said, we really like you to have more experience before you apply for a doctorate. He was like, plus people in your age bracket seem to be immature.
Wow.
And so I told him, I said, well, look, if you want to deny me admission, then you do that. But what is it that you're calling me for? He said, I want you to withdraw your application, actually.
Oh, wow.
I said, I'm not withdrawing my application. If you're going to deny me, deny me.
Yeah.
He didn't deny me.
Okay.
7 years later, when he sat on my dissertation committee, he said I was one of the best decisions he had made, accepting me into the doctoral program, because all the professors talked about how I showed up mature and how I showed up ready to learn. And my laughter always reverberated throughout the room.
Well, you know, we have memorable laughs.
That's true.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Wow. So you were how old when you received the doctorate?
So I got my doctorate in 2010. So math ain't my strong suit unless it's dealing with money.
Okay.
But I think I was 31 or 32.
Okay. And I remember that time because you, mom and dad were so proud.
Yep.
And they said, we have to throw her a party.
Yep.
Because nobody in our family has done this before.
Yep.
And so I remember being at the party and being so proud. Listen, you know, I have never wanted to do all of that extra education. But you have, since you were a child, you know, you have always been what I call an overachiever, which is not a bad thing.
Okay.
It's just, you're always reaching for the next goal. Now, since I've been an adult, people have told me that I am an overachiever as well. Okay. I never knew that about myself. But I have never been an overachiever when it comes to like educational things. However, so from that being were you the youngest one in your class?
Yes, that year that I graduated, I was the youngest person to get a doctorate.
Okay.
Yep.
And did you face any barriers in those classes with your fellow students or professors, or was it just that one professor?
It was that one at the beginning. And if I did encounter barriers, I wouldn't have noticed them anyway, because I don't view life like that. Okay. I just keep it moving.
Okay.
I keep it moving.
So when you say you don't view life like that, what does that mean?
So I do not a lot of people see life as successes and failures. I see life as successes and things you need to learn from and grow from.
Okay.
So for me, anytime something happens where it knocks me off my square, I'm like, okay, pause. So first of all, what am I supposed to see in this moment?
Okay.
What am I supposed to experience in this moment? And then most of all, what can I learn from this moment? Because I don't like repeating lessons, even though often I have in my life.
I mean, we all do when we don't learn the first time.
Correct. Correct.
Not a fun place to be in. Okay. So if we move from the doctorate,
okay,
and we go to, I know that at one point you were a teacher.
Yep.
So
that was very early in my career.
Yeah. So it doesn't say that in your bio.
It doesn't.
But I know that you were a teacher.
I was.
And so tell me about that time as a teacher, and then what prompted you to move from teacher to administrator.
So you know this because you're my sister. You know I move around a lot. So I started my career as a teacher at a school, and so we're in Chicago, so in Inglewood. Really didn't like this school, and so I went to teach at a high school that our sister taught at. And then during that time, I was pregnant, and so I wanted to come out the classroom, or at least try to figure out a different schedule. Okay. But in teaching, you really can't do a different schedule. So I quit my teaching job, and I went to a nonprofit around the corner from where we lived, actually, in Austin.
Okay.
Did that for 6 months. That was not a great fit. Got asked to go work at Harold Washington for their dual credit program and also service learning. So then as I'm coming into the close of that, my old principal from the high school called me and invited me back to teach for him after I had called him. So I had called him and said, hey, I really would like to come back to teaching, because at that point, I think my son was 2 or 3.
Okay.
And he was like, he might have been 2. And he said, you can come back. He was like, but I don't have a job right now. Well, you know, a few weeks later, he had a job. So he called me back. He gave me freshman. That was not my jam. Freshmen need a lot of structure in order to be successful for the rest of high school.
Okay.
That wasn't my jam. So halfway through the year, he asked me to take over juniors because of a maternity leave.
Okay.
That was my jam.
Okay. Okay, you found a sweet spot.
So I taught juniors that summer and that next year as well. Test scores went up.
Okay.
And then I announced to my boss that I needed to quit again, because my son at that point was showing signs of things that I needed to get assessed. He couldn't work with me because, again, teaching is it's not flexible.
Yeah.
So then I became an instructional coach of teachers in 4 high schools in Chicago. Did that really well, did it for 2 years. Then we all got laid off in a massive layoff in 2010 with Chicago Public Schools, because that's just what they like to do. And I had a newly minted doctorate. And so you would think I would be panicked, but I wasn't, because I was just like, it's going to be what it's going to be. I'll get a job at some point.
Okay.
I ended up becoming an assistant principal in our community that we grew up in, because the principal got my resume from 2 people who knew her and from me applying. She had interviewed 49 people or 48 people, and she said, when I saw your resume, I was like, I got to meet her. Well, at the time, I had like this funky fro that was uneven. I needed a pedicure, all kind of stuff, but I went into the interview with the best I could. But she was impressed by my intellect, and so I got hired.
Okay.
Worked with her for a year. I learned a lot from her. Her name is Dr. Jasmine Bankhead.
Okay.
And then after that year, our school was closing, so I got laid off again. And I didn't panic, because 3 weeks later, she asked me, did I want to lead a school on the west side that had 2 campuses? And I was like, say what? So I did that. Went to lead that school for 3 years.
Okay.
At the end of the 3rd year, though, I had some philosophical differences with the management company.
Okay.
And I have no shame talking about this, because there were 12 principals in their portfolio at that point, and 9 or 10 of us resigned.
Wow.
So I knew that my philosophical differences were we all probably had them, and so people walked away. And I took a few months off, like 6 months, because I was at that point, I had my daughter, and then got the opportunity to work at a university as an assistant director of a teacher career program.
Okay.
And I liked that job, but I didn't love it, because I had to travel downstate in order to sometimes do the work I needed to do.
Okay.
Plus, it moved kind of slow. And in K-12, things move a little faster than they do in higher ed.
And you definitely need things to keep going.
I need things to keep
your
moving.
attention. Yeah.
So about 9 months in, I get a call from a school I had interviewed at the prior year. It was an all-girls high school, and I was asked to come and lead that school.
Okay.
So I remember walking to the interview. It was like 12 or 13 people I interviewed with. And while they interviewed me, I also interviewed them. Because at that point, my job was, even though it was kind of not challenging, it also wasn't stressful, which was different for me. And so I was like, I'm not trying to go back into stress. Well, I did. I took that job. The job taught me a lot, because I was a single site charter. I closed that school in 2019.
A single site charter, explain that. What does that mean?
Okay, so it was a charter school where it was the only one. So we had to do everything on site. So like when you work in a school district, there's a district office that handles curriculum and payroll and teacher development and all that stuff. When you're a single site school, all that stuff falls on me as the principal. So I really function as an executive director.
Oh, wow.
I learned how to fundraise in that job. I got media trained in that job. I learned how to do videos in that job.
Okay.
It was a lot of things.
I never realized that that's why you were doing all of those things.
Yes, because it was a single site charter. And although I had a team, I still had to be able to lead that team.
Okay.
So then in 2019, when that school closed, I made a deal with another charter school in the area. I had 135 girls at that point. The new school took 110 or 120 of those girls.
Okay.
And I had 35 staff at that point, and the new school took about 15 to 20 of those staffs.
Okay.
So I felt like I had done my job.
Okay.
Like, okay, I have closed the school well. Everybody has found a soft place to land. And And then I had about 5 or 6 different jobs I could have had. And I chose a job in the south suburbs where I'm at now at a Christian nonprofit where we serve people with developmental disabilities.
Wow. Wow. That is a journey.
That is eclectic.
I mean, you've done a little bit of this, a little bit of that, some more of this,
Yes.
a little bit more of that.
Yes.
But it's all culminated to this place where you're in now.
Yep.
And so my next question would be, with all of the steps along the way, how did you choose the next spot? It sounds like a lot of the places chose you.
Yes.
Like you weren't even really looking for things all the time.
I would say that's true. It's a mixture. It's a mixture of sometimes I had to apply an interview, like that job at the university. And sometimes, like my last job, I got a call. I would say it's all divine. So I'm not one of those people that say, oh, it's serendipitous. Mm-hmm. My life is not serendipitous.
Okay.
My life is ordered by the Lord, and I'm sure of that.
Okay. So have there been any times throughout the journey in your career where you were like, I'd rather not do that, but you did it anyway because you knew that was what you were supposed to do?
I got to think about that. Honestly, the one job I did not enjoy was being a teacher, believe it or not.
Out of all the things.
I did not enjoy being a teacher because when you teach high school, and people always talk about, oh, teachers get all this time off, but they don't know the load that teachers carry, particularly English and math teachers.
Okay.
So we have to teach our 5 classes. In the city, you have anywhere from 25 to 30 kids. When you're an English teacher, you have to give out essays and stuff because the children have to know how to write. You got to do presentations because they got to know how to speak. You need to do readings and you need to do discussions because they need to know how to discuss different things. Then on top of all that, you're planning lessons, you're grading papers. So, I also did after school programming. It was just, I did not like being a teacher because of all the stuff that had nothing to do with kids.
Okay. So you want to be able to really just impact the student.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm sitting here and I was going back and forth on whether or not I was going to bring this up, but it's just a kind of a laughing moment, really.
Okay.
Because you said out of all the jobs, you did not enjoy being a teacher.
I did not.
And I go back to when we were children and we used to play school.
Yeah.
And you always had to be the principal.
Yep.
And whenever I would beg, like, I didn't want to be the principal this time. I want to be the principal this time. I don't want to be a teacher. I want to be the principal this time.
It was rare.
And then you'd finally relent and let me be the principal, but you just would not act right. But now I know that you just didn't want to be a teacher.
And that's the funny thing. People say I'm a great teacher.
Yeah.
When I run into former students, they say I was a wonderful teacher.
Okay.
But I did not love teaching.
Okay. So let's talk about, there's teaching in the secular, and then your bio talks about teaching in the sacred. Yes. And so tell me about teaching, your journey in teaching in the sacred.
That's so interesting. So I knew it was always in us, well, in me and you, because our mom is both secular and sacred teacher. So mom was a retired teacher, but she also taught Bible class. Well, she still teaches Bible class. What am I talking about?
Absolutely.
I think I want to say you and I first started teaching at the church we grew up in, youth church.
Yes.
We didn't call it youth church then. I think it was just youth Sunday school, whatever it was.
Youth Sunday school.
Our teachers would allow us to kind of provide lessons. And so, but I didn't really do anything with that until I got to not the church I'm in now, but my previous church.
Okay.
When I was asked to be over the new members class.
Okay.
And be in Christian education.
Okay.
So I didn't mind it, but the lady who was over it, Sister Lorna Brewer Baker, love her. but also because she is tough. She knows her Bible back and forth.
Okay.
And she wants you to know your Bible back and forth.
Okay.
She wants you to know hermeneutics, homiletics, exegeses, yada, yada, yada.
All those things
that were new to me when I got to that church. And then she was giving us exams and giving us homework.
Okay.
I didn't always cooperate, I'm not going to lie. Because typically I had a full-time job and a family. And so sometimes I would do the homework and sometimes I wouldn't.
Okay.
But when I would do the homework, particularly when we did it as a group, we always did pretty well.
Okay.
But I was asked to teach new members class in my last church because the young lady wanted to resign. And the minister, Elder Larry Long, he said, God told me you're supposed to be the new members class leader. And I was like, that's nice. And so he circled back to me, said it again. And I was like, that's nice. And then the lady who was over the class said, didn't Elder Long tell you that God told him? And so I have this theory that when God sends something to me 3 times, I need to do it. So the second time I heard it, I knew I was going to end up having to do it, but I'm stubborn. And so when I got the 3rd request, I went to my pastor and asked him, could I flip the new members class? Because I had gone through the new members class and I didn't enjoy it.
Okay.
And he was like, basically, what gives you the right and he didn't say it the way, but it was kind of like, who are you to want to change the class?
What qualifies you?
Because he didn't know at the time.
Okay.
My credentials, my experience. Once I flipped the curriculum, he was like, whoa, where does this come from? I was like, from me and the Bible and Jesus. And so I taught that class until I left that church, and they still want to understand, teach that class almost in the way that I left it.
Okay. Wow. So it sounds like your pressing hasn't necessarily been in the secular teaching. It sounds like your pressing has come from the sacred teaching.
Yeah, it has.
So what have some of those, if we had a window into your world and your talks with God, what are some of those conversations like when God is pressing you to do a thing that you don't necessarily really want to do?
So I had this happen earlier this year.
Okay.
So earlier this year, my husband was driving and he was like, I think I need to send my wife away. Well, I was already thinking about taking a sabbatical.
Okay.
And the sabbatical meaning that I needed time to write and do some other things without the interruption of him and my daughter. I love them, but I need uninterrupted time. He comes home. He says, Bae, he says, I want to send you on sabbatical. And I said, okay. And so I go on sabbatical. And typically when I go on sabbatical, because I try to go once a year, I try to make sure in my hotel room the TV is off.
Okay.
That I have my journal. That I have I don't use my physical Bible as much anymore, but I take my iPad because I like Bible Gateway.
Okay.
Because I like I like NIV, NLT, Message.
You need those all the different translations.
Yeah. And then also I have found a Bible dictionary online and also a concordance.
Okay.
And so all those things. So the way God talks to me really is the older I get is through scripture and sometimes it's through confirmation through other people.
Okay.
So if somebody comes to me with a message from God and I haven't heard it yet, I don't discount it. I just write it down.
Okay.
Until it manifests. So I told you that long story because we talked about me being a lifelong learner. So I'm currently a recipient of a Duke Reflective Leadership Grant.
Okay.
And how did that happen? So I was in an executive coaching group, and one of the guys sent me an email and said, hey, Dr. V, I think you should apply for this. And I deleted it. And while I was on sabbatical, a LinkedIn post came out about the Duke Reflective Leadership Grant.
Wow.
And I was like, so I pulled the application up, but I saw that it was multi-layered. And every question, they wanted 1,500 words.
Okay.
And I was like, no thanks. But while I was on sabbatical, I started doing the application anyway.
Okay.
Because then when I got back home, I saw something else about Duke. And I was like, fine, God, I will apply.
So he keeps
God keeps nudging me. And typically by nudge 2, I'm submitted.
Okay.
Well, no, let me not lie. By nudge 2, I am ready to be submitted.
Okay.
Nudge 3 is when I get submitted. But nudge 1, I always say, no thanks, or you know my phrase, not interested.
Yes. Yes.
So I would say that's how God talks to me, is through scripture.
Okay.
And sometimes through confirmation of other people. I do, though, sometimes go sit in nature. Do I hear God in nature? No, but I can hear the stillness.
Okay.
And I need to get real still sometimes because my brain is going a mile a minute.
I mean, but the Bible tells us, be still and know that I'm God.
Yeah, that is just
You know, that so he wants us to be still so that we
Yes.
can hear him clearly.
Yes.
You know, that's a very important thing to be able to do. Today's episode is brought to you by Destiny Film and Media. Go to destinyfam1.com for all your media needs. Destiny Film and Media, your destiny through film and media. So we've talked about your career in the natural. We've talked about the teaching portion in the spiritual. So you also talk, your bio also talks about how you've written a book.
Yep.
And so I want to talk a little bit about this book and how you, like, what was the inspiration for the book and how did that all come about?
So in 2020, when we had the pandemic, so I really get irritated when people talk about the pandemic because most people talk about it in a negative way.
Okay.
Like it was a rough time, I had a little depression, whatever. And I'm not saying that wasn't true for some people. That's not how my life works.
Okay.
So when the right before the pandemic happened, I heard God clearly say, the curriculum that you did at your old church, you need to flip it into a book. And I was like, that's nice.
Wait a minute. So let's put a pin right there.
Okay.
So what you didn't want to do, the class that you didn't want to teach,
Correct.
the class that God had to tell you 3 times,
Correct.
this is what you're going to do.
Correct.
And then he gave you a roadmap to flip the class, as you say.
Yep.
To make it even better than it was. Then God took that very thing that you didn't want to do.
Correct.
And then gave you a book.
That's what he said.
Wow.
So he said, take the curriculum from your old church, write a book. I was like, nope.
Wait. So you had already had the curriculum written.
I had a teacher manual and a student manual, 10 lessons each.
That you had already written.
It was done.
And you said no when he said put it in a book.
Did, because I was just like, I'm not, in my mind, and this is what's funny. So this is a sidebar, so get me back on track after this story.
Okay.
Recently I went to our parents' house and I went to the basement and I found 3 plaques. I won an essay contest in 8th grade. I won an essay contest in high school, and I won an essay contest in college.
Wow.
8th grade year, 12th grade year, senior year of college. And I sat there for a moment about a month ago when I was in the basement, and I was like, God was just taking me back to what had already been started at 12 and 13 years old.
You're a writer.
I'm a writer. So I say no. But because we're in the pandemic and you at home, and I'm trying to half homeschool my daughter, which was a disaster. And also trying to work.
Because once again, you don't like.
I don't like to teach. And then trying to also do my job and learn Zoom and conference calls and all that, like we all were.
Yes.
And then God is like, and when time slows down, you need to be writing some introductions and stuff for this book. Well, first of all, I didn't even know where to start. But we all have the internet, right?
Yes.
So then I Googled like parts of a book.
Okay.
And then I have a bunch of books in the basement. So then I pull a bunch of books out the basement. Spread these books out, start to look them over. And I'm like, fine, I will write this book, take this curriculum and write this book.
Okay.
So, and I really didn't have to write it. It literally only needed like a table of contents and an introductory chapter, an appendix. And then I added, because my husband read my book and said, this book is missing something. I just don't know what it is.
Okay.
And so we started talking about what it means to go to church. So then I wrote a chapter on church etiquette. Like, what do you do when you're not feeling well? How do you know how to choose a seat? How do you know how to dress? Those kind of things. Because when people get saved, we assume that they're going to come into church and know exactly what to do. And that's not truthful. They need to be taught, but also, why can't I give them a cheat sheet? So back on track about this book.
Okay.
So I write this book, and we go on vacation that next summer, even though it's in a pandemic.
Uh-huh.
In the meantime, I was like, God, how am I supposed to publish this book? Am I supposed to self-publish? Because at this time, I had learned it was 3 different ways to publish a book: self-publish, hybrid publish, traditional publish. Self-publish is you do everything yourself. You use your own money. You go on Fiverr or something like that, and you figure it out.
Okay.
Hybrid publishing is you pay the company to do everything for you, but you still own the rights to your book.
Okay.
Traditional publishing is you're trying to put together a book proposal in order for a publisher to agree to publish you. But every publisher typically wants you to be able to write 3 books. So they're not going to say yes most times to your first book unless they believe that you'll be able to write 2 more books, because they want a 2 to 3 book series.
Okay.
So after I learned all that, I decided to go hybrid publishing because we had pretty good savings. And so I made an investment.
Okay.
Book comes out in February 2022. Didn't know then what I know now. I get on Facebook the year prior because, I had been anti-Facebook.
Yes, you had been anti-social media, everything.
So I got on Facebook that fall because I was like, well, I'm going to have a book to put out. And that fall is when my first article got published, My Educational Family Vacations. Do you remember that?
Oh, yes, I do.
Okay. So once that get published, I hear God clearly say, that got published. The book is coming out in February.
Okay.
You can write. So put this book out. Now, to date, I've only sold 200 copies.
Let's no. That's not how we say that.
Okay, how do we say it?
We say that to date, we've sold 200 copies.
And counting?
And counting.
Come on.
That's how we say that.
That's how we say that then.
Because there's not an only, because, listen, selling one book is success.
Right. But when I went to a writer's conference this summer, they said the average author only sells 250 books over their lifetime. So I know I'm doing pretty good.
So in what, a year? 2 years?
The book has been out in February to be 3 years.
Okay, so in 3 years, you've sold almost 200 copies.
Yeah.
Okay, listen, your lifetime is much longer.
I mean, yeah.
Than 3 years. I mean, that just means that the people have not heard about you yet.
They haven't. And so let me tell people what the book is about.
Yes, please.
So the book is for new members or new Christians. When I wrote the book, I wrote it for new members, but it really is for new Christians. And the topics that the book discusses besides church etiquette is salvation, the Godhead, which is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. A lot of people call it the Trinity. The word Trinity is not in the word. Stick to the word, which is Godhead.
Okay.
Tithes and offering, praise and worship, spiritual gifts. And I'm missing a couple right now because I'm blanking on it.
Okay.
But each lesson is set up the same way. An introduction, the materials you need, the questions that you need to ask as a teacher in particular. And then the students have like a student manual where they can take notes. And I've put in a lot of them in like charts and graphs and stuff so that they can take notes. The book is in 1. It really should be 2. But, when I used my hybrid publisher, I didn't have an infinite amount of money. So at some point, I will be republished. Amen. Hallelujah.
Amen. Amen.
And it will be 2 books like it's supposed to be. And I believe that this book will be good, not just for U.S. churches, but any church, because I actually had a Baptist person, a Methodist person, a Catholic person read the book prior to publishing to make sure that it met the needs of everybody. The only lesson that people disagreed on was the tithes and offering. Okay. Everything else, everybody was okay with.
Okay. Wow. Is it? That's pretty major.
Yeah.
That's pretty. It sounds like people should go out and get the book. Shame on me, because I have the book right upstairs and I did not bring it down here. But we'll fix that. Don't you worry. We'll fix that. We'll make sure that we plug the book so people know where they can get the book and show them the book and all the things. Okay. So we've talked. So now we've talked about the book. Are there any more books coming out of you?
It's interesting. So right now I am writing my second book. Okay. And so I got my little feelings hurt this summer at a writers' conference.
Why do you say that?
The book that I wanted to write, that I'm still writing, but it has a different twist, is about being the pioneer and trailblazer in quite a few things in our family. But what a literary agent told me when I met with her is that a lot of times people of color are pioneers and trailblazers. She was like, so your experience is not that special. She was like, you have to figure out what can people learn from your experience.
Correct.
How can you make it more as a like an educational, teachable moment?
Well, even before getting your doctorate, you were also the first person in our family that we know about to study abroad.
Yeah.
So you were out there doing a lot of things that were different.
Yes.
Not only for our family, but for the people that were around us.
Yes.
On the west side of Chicago.
That's one of the chapters in the book, actually, is about that's why it's pioneering and trailblazing. Mm-hmm. Studying abroad, joining the board of directors, getting a doctorate, having neurodivergent children. The list goes on. It's a lot of first pioneering and trailblazing that the Lord continues to do.
And how does that make you feel?
I'm not going to lie to you. I get pretty upset with God. Because in my mind, I'm always like, for example, at my job, I was the first person of color hired in the executive team when I got hired in 2019. Now, this organization at that time was 70 years old.
You said 70?
At that time, the organization was 70 years old, and I was the first person of color hired in the executive team.
Wow.
So when that kind of stuff happens, I'm looking at God and I'm going, and we always ask the why me, and I do it too. I'm like, God, why me? And the scripture that God gave me for my leadership back in 2010, when I first became an assistant principal, it's on every wall in every job I've had. Joshua chapter 1, verse 10. Every place that the sole of my feet shall tread upon, that have I given unto you, as I said unto Moses. And what he makes me say is, every place that I have given unto you, Vanessa, you're supposed to be a change agent. You're supposed to push back on status quo, and you're supposed to kill sacred cows.
Wow.
That is hard to do.
Wow.
But I have done it just about in every organization that I have led in.
Wow.
Because organizations are better typically when I leave them. Here goes a great example. I told you about the chartered management company where, 10 years ago, I quit that job with 12 of the principals. At this point, my old school is the only school that's still standing in their portfolio.
What do you mean by that?
They had 12 schools at the time. They now only have one. And the only school that they have is the school that I led.
Wow.
So that lets me know that what I did and what some previous principals did and what some principals did after me, we were all able to build upon each other.
Got it.
And so I'm pretty stoked about that. I'm sad now because I actually learned that they're closing. But that's because they lost a really good principal. So they had a bad one after me, and then they got a really good one right after that one. And he decided he didn't want to be bothered either after 8 years.
Wow.
And that's when the school started to struggle. But that school probably would have stayed open a long time. And because it was some good foundation there.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Look, we are pressing into all kind of purpose here. So if you don't want to talk about this, we don't have to.
Okay.
But I'm going to ask a question because you brought it up.
Okay.
And the term you used, I believe, was neurodivergent.
Yes.
Children.
Yes.
Can you explain what that means?
Yes. So 20-something years ago, when my son got diagnosed, we would say, and we still say it, that a child has disabilities.
Okay.
But if your children are high functioning, you really shouldn't phrase it as disabilities. You should phrase it as neurodivergent because that means their brain works different.
Okay.
So I have a son who's on the spectrum.
Okay.
Even though right now he's flourishing in college, but he still has issues, though, with perspective taking.
Okay.
That will probably be lifelong, and that's okay because he is uniquely made the way he is. I also have a daughter who has ADHD. She is energetic from the time she gets up until the time she goes to sleep. There is no calmness whatsoever.
Okay.
And so I love my children.
Absolutely.
But I have looked at God and I'm like, you gave my other two sisters these normal kids. And then you gave me these normal in terms of like, my kids have had a lot of therapies and IEPs and supports and had me running around the city. Well, really, I found UIC was a safe place in order to know how to support them. And it's a lot, but I was capable of doing it because I had been an educator. But that doesn't mean I wanted to do it.
So once again, here we are.
Here you go. You're about to make this theme. I hear you.
Here we go. I mean, the thing that you didn't want to do, right?
Correct.
You God used that very thing that you didn't want to do to equip you to do to walk in the administrative space.
Yep.
And the leadership space. And he also took what you learned in the secular to be able to help you in your home.
Correct.
With your own children.
Correct.
And
I've helped other people's kids, though, too. You know, sometimes you and my other sisters or friends call me.
Absolutely.
So I can help give other people resources. Because it's devastating when you get a diagnosis about your kid. But you can't say your kid will fail. You have to say, what is success going to look like for that child?
Say that again for the people in the back.
When you get a diagnosis for a child, whatever it is, you cannot say it's a failure or what your child can't do. You have to figure out what will success look like for that child.
And that's what you just said, for me, has become a part of just my everyday life when it comes to success. Because success looks different for everybody.
It does.
It really looks different for everybody.
It does.
Growing up, I thought that success was, you got the big house, you making a certain salary, you living in a certain place, and you making a certain amount of money. And that's what I thought success was, because that's the quote unquote American dream.
Right.
As I've gotten older, I've realized that it's not the American dream for everyone.
Correct.
Because everybody doesn't want to own a home.
Correct.
Everybody doesn't want to make $1 million a year. And everybody doesn't want to, everybody's definition of success looks different.
Right.
So for me, success is being able to take care of my family, and it does include, living a certain way.
Okay.
Which includes being in certain neighborhoods and, with certain amenities and those things. But then also for me, it's about being able to travel and being able to just live comfortably.
So I'm a shift you a little bit, because this week I was in executive education.
Okay.
And my professor, Andrew Sykes, shout out to him, he talked about how every human wants to be able to make meaning of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's what you're talking about, is success is not all the material consumer stuff, but it's more about what is your mind, spirit, and soul saying about how you want to make meaning of life. Or to your point, live it on purpose.
Yeah. Okay. I like that phrasing, how to make meaning out of
life. How to make meaning out of your life.
Because I can't always say that that success was me living on purpose. I can't say that was my truth.
Okay.
It is becoming my truth.
Okay.
But when I was younger, and I would venture to say even like my definition of success has even shifted in the last 5 years.
Okay.
Because it was about doing things for God, which for me meant really not just my fellow man, but mostly at church. That's what it meant for me. And so now it's shifting over the past 5 years where it's more of impacting my fellow man.
Got it.
And realizing that God placed me on earth to be life, light, and encouragement to people. Although I've known that for a while, I've never really thought about centering everything that I do around those principles. So what would you say you've been placed on earth to do?
Joshua 1:10.
Which is?
Every place is the sole of my foot shall tread upon, that have I given unto you, as I said unto Moses. God sends me places, whether it is church or work or wherever, to be a change agent, push back against the status quo, kill sacred cows. In secular spaces, it has been too, and this is something that people don't always love about me. I have a standard of excellence. That's what I believe that God sends me into places to do, to be a change agent and give people a standard.
Okay.
Because oftentimes people think they have a standard. They don't. They have I'm good. For most people, it is, as Professor Andrew Sykes said this week, he called it, you get to a certain point and you learn it and you're like, I'm good. And you don't want to really challenge yourself
Or learn anything.
learn anything more.
People get comfortable.
Or they just get satisfied with where they're at. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Not me.
So that is something that we have in common, and maybe it's in our DNA.
Okay.
Because it's very challenging. I feel like every time I set a goal, whether it's a personal goal or a God-given goal, every time a goal is set and then I achieve that goal, I'm looking for the next thing.
Right.
Not everybody, and I know you do the same thing.
I do.
But I'm learning, not everybody does that.
No, because some people, when they get to their lives to a certain point, they're good. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Not at all.
I'm learning, though, that there's nothing wrong with that.
Correct.
Because for me...
Correct.
For me, back in 2010, if you had asked me what success looked like, I would have told you my doctorate. And I still believe that because this is something a doctorate has done that I don't think people give enough credit to when you have masters and doctorates and even bachelors. College degrees give you opportunity and access, just like the trades. And so I don't want to knock on that because I may have a college degree, but I still need that mechanic and I still need that carpenter and plumber.
Absolutely.
So college degrees and trades give you opportunity and access, not just for you, but also for those who are coming behind you, your family, those in your sphere of influence, whatever they may be.
I love that you highlighted it's not just about college, but it's also about the trades. You know, I work in construction and I see, and especially in the Chicagoland area, I see how much the you get paid as a union laborer, cement mason, electrician, plumber, iron worker.
Yes.
All the different trades. Once you finish your apprenticeship program, you are easily making anywhere between 90 and well into the six figures.
And that's why I get irritated when people feel like, and I feel like in America, we've done this and we shouldn't have. We've made the college degree the pinnacle, when really it's about what does success look like
for you.
For you.
Because so I went to a technical high school, and at the time we had trade classes. Like they had the auto shop, wood shop, print shop, all the different shops. And those things were important. And we had board drafting, which is what made me realize that I wanted to be, to be an architect. And now a lot of schools don't have that in the Chicagoland area, which to me is it's a travesty. It's a sad state of affairs. Not that there aren't still some schools that do have the programs, but I don't think that there are enough of them because to your point, we still need the people who want to work with their hands.
Yes.
And some people are just born to work with their hands.
Yes.
And they're favored and graced to do it.
And we also still need the people too. Let me add this. Might sound strange coming from somebody with a doctorate. We also need people who just finished high school to do some of the jobs that we think are menial, but really you would notice if they weren't done.
Listen.
You need the security officer.
Absolutely.
You need the custodian.
Absolutely.
You need the administrative assistant.
Absolutely.
Because when people have big roles and they don't have some of the other roles that are entry level or mid level, you notice it. You notice that gap, that lack. And I've gotten like this the older I've gotten because it really irritates me that people really
downplay.
Yes, they downplay all
certain careers. Yeah,
yes,
certain careers, certain quote unquote statuses of life in life, and we need everybody.
We need everybody
because if we have no one to pick up the garbage, then the city is overrun.
Exactly.
The city is overrun with trash and rodents.
Correct.
You see what I'm saying? If we have no one
to drive the bus or the train,
then a lot of people are not getting to the jobs
that they need to.
Yeah, exactly. And our parents, our mother specifically, she stressed to us, you treat everybody with respect.
Yes.
From the CEO to the janitor.
Yes.
You treat everyone with the utmost respect because Everybody matters.
And I lost that for a little while. I did. And I had to get back to it.
Well, welcome back.
Yeah. Yeah, I lost that for a little while because it was like, oh, I'm getting a doctorate. And then I remember when I became an assistant principal, that's when I realized, like, wait, all these other roles, though, are just as important as my doctorate and being an assistant principal.
Absolutely.
And so that's when I changed my tune.
Because who are you leading if there's no one to follow?
Bingo.
You know, and how is vision carried out if there are no hands and feet?
Correct.
You know, you need the visionary, but you also need the people to carry out the vision.
Correct.
And there is no shame in any position.
In any position.
Because all positions are necessary.
They all matter.
All of them. That ain't even what we're supposed to be talking about. But look, that was a good side note. Just some information that you need to know. So as we kind of wrap up the conversation,
okay,
I would like for you to talk to the person that is looking or seeking purpose, who doesn't really know what their purpose is. What advice would you give, or what steps would you give to that person that is looking for their purpose or is afraid to step out on their purpose?
So I'm going to be practical first.
Okay.
So in high school or even in college, you should have taken some kind of career interest inventory.
Okay.
So that you can know the kind of jobs that you will be interested in. A lot of times when you miss that just real basic step, you end up doing a whole lot of stuff that maybe you wasn't purpose for. But then we'll have to go spiritual.
Okay.
So then we have to seek God, the Father, and say, God, what is it I'm supposed to do? And a lot of people wait for an audible voice for him to say it, but lots of times it will just show up in things that you're good at or things that people acknowledge and say, has anybody ever told you? And that's how sometimes you can try to figure out at the beginning what your purpose is. If you're further along in life and you're trying to shift, then you're going to have to sit back down and say, okay, these are the things that I've done. What is it now that God is calling me to, where some of this will have a remnant of that, but it may be something totally different. You're kind of an example of that, right? You're in construction management, but this podcast is what the spiritual side of you is supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
It's to help press people into their purpose.
Absolutely.
And so I guess my encouragement will be, in the natural, take a career interest inventory, no matter what age you are. You can find it on any, Google it, do one. Spiritually, if you're a Christian, please sit down and pray and ask God for guidance. And then somebody in the audience may say, I'm not faith-based. Fine. So sit down somewhere and listen to your gut. People say don't trust your gut, but a lot of you all have instincts and gut that have not led you wrong, and so trust that.
Right. So do an inventory or assessment. Sit with God and simply ask.
Yes.
And trust your gut. Okay. All right. Well, I think that this conversation has blessed me. And I know that if it's blessed me, that it has blessed some of you that are listening out there today. So I want to say thank you, Dr. V, for stopping by the Pressed into Purpose podcast. And I appreciate your insight. I appreciate your willingness to share your story. And I just appreciate you being a great sister and friend. So thank you so much. I appreciate you and I love you. And until next time, this is Pressed into Purpose, and we'll see you next time. Today's episode is brought to you by Destiny Film and Media. Go to destinyfam1.com for all your media needs. Destiny Film and Media, your destiny through film and media.